There have been more positive noises at the prospect of a Donald Trump presidency coming from Downing Street in the Foreign Office. Theresa May's spokeswoman has predicted good working relations with Mr Trump, and Boris Johnson has described his election win as a moment of opportunity for Britain. With the UK looking to increase its global trade network post-Brexit, warm relations with the United States are being seen as particularly important. But will Donald Trump, who campaigned on promises to bolster US industry and restore jobs, be as committed to free trade as the British government might like? Well, let's speak to Sam Bowman, Executive Director of the free market think tank Adam Smith Institute, who joins me from our central London studio. I guess there's something reassuring in another country choosing to sort of go outside the parameters of what we had come to think of as normal. Do you think that's what Downing Street is saying, or do you think they're actually feeling even more excited about this?
I think Downing Street certainly wants us to think it's excited. I think, like most people watching, Downing Street probably would have preferred a different result last week, but you know, you work with what you've got. I think there are two things really to remember. The first is that Donald Trump is not a dictator. The US Congress has to approve most changes to trade deals that he wants to push through, and the US Congress, I think, is generally quite pro-free trade. The second is that trade and the global trade system doesn't solely depend on the United States. Now, we can see this in Asia, even as Donald Trump has more or less said that the Trans-Pacific Partnership, this big trade deal involving the United States, China and lots of other East Asian countries, even as Trump has said that that's dead, China is now kind of making overtures to try and push that forward on its own. So free trade deals are certainly not dead. There's been a bit of a speed bump, no doubt, but it would be a mistake to think that Donald Trump means the end of the kind of global free trade system in any real way.
It's interesting, isn't it, to hear you describing Congress almost as the part that does the checks and balances. I mean, he's got, you know, Republican Senate, Republican House, Republican presidency. If they're all singing to the same tune, they can get everything done. Do you think that his biggest battle is going to be with his own party then?
I think undoubtedly that will happen. On some things like tax reform, I think we're definitely going to see big changes. Paul Ryan, the Speaker for the House, the most powerful man apart from Donald Trump in US politics now, will probably drive forward a very radical tax-cutting platform, and I suspect Donald Trump will sign that into law. But we have to remember that just a week ago, Paul Ryan and Donald Trump were at each other's throats. A lot of people in the Republican Party kind of privately didn't want Donald Trump to win. And now they're going to end up being the main opponents to Donald Trump. It's not usual that we would see this sort of infighting, but Donald Trump isn't a usual president. He's not a usual candidate. So I think that what we will see is a real, quite an oppositional approach to a lot of things in politics, and I think trade is really one of them. But on some, like possibly Obamacare and probably taxes, I think we'll see the Congress and Trump work together.
On immigration, he's doubled down on his commitment to remove, 3 million illegal immigrants. How does that play into the trade picture, and whether you think the Republicans will work with him or against him?
I think they probably will work with him to an extent, but the big question is how quickly will this happen and who is it that's being deported? I mean, it's easy to forget that Barack Obama has overseen 3 million deportations as president, so if Trump was continuing the same kind of policy, it wouldn't actually be a major change, although that's something that a lot of people don't realize. The big danger, I think, would be that immigrants who have been in the US for a very long time, 5 years or more, who've settled down, who've made lives for themselves and who've got real jobs there, are suddenly picked up simply because they're undocumented and kicked out of the country. I don't think that's going to happen because it's very disruptive, and that really does threaten a lot of Republican votes in those sort of southwestern states. Now,
just to return, sorry, for 1 second to the UK angle on this, what is your sense of whether Donald Trump or America as a whole is interested in dealing with the UK outside of the EU?
Well, I suspect that Donald Trump might actually be quite good for the UK. On the one part, because I think he's probably reasonably pro-English. Now, how much that actually means with Donald Trump, I'm not sure. But secondly, because it means that the European Union can't really afford to keep us at arm's length or push us away as sort of punishment for leaving the EU. We're all really in this together now, and I think the European Union, now that Trump is in power in the White House will really realise that we need the closest deal possible, and we need the most kind of open and free trade friendly deal possible. But I wouldn't be absolutely surprised if, as NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, is renegotiated, if some people start to suggest that maybe the UK could join that, as well as being very close to the EU, and in some ways end up being a kind of bridge in terms of trade across the Atlantic, both a member of the US's Free Trade Agreement and the European Union's single market.
Sam Bowman, good to talk to you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.